get started, just very quickly, I have two major disclaimers. Disclaimer number one, I'm originally from Minnesota, and even though I've been in the Bay Area for about 10 years, I still have a very thick Minnesota accent. So probably you hear things like, oh yeah, sure, you betcha, don't you know, etc. It's ridiculous. Number two, I think I'm funny. Most people disagree. So, with that, I'll leave the rest of it on the screen. The big thing is I had the incredible privilege of building 4 different developer programs from the ground up. And that's really spanned both developer relations and developer marketing. And in doing those programs, it's been a lot of different experiences and a lot of different markets. So my first program I ever built was at Constant Contact. And Constant Contact is not a developer-first company. They sell to small businesses, and they want me to come in and convince developers to use their API to build integrations for their customers. And when I got to Constant Contact, this is my first ever developer relations, developer marketing job. I'm excited. And I got there and I started asking people, what do you think about Constant Contact? And they're like, yeah, you guys are cool. You're not as cool as MailChimp, but you know, you're top 10, top 20. So we had a challenge there. And the important thing when you tell a story, when you have the messaging, is to make sure you have your mic on. Rule number one. The other important thing is that every developer program is going to be different. And every developer program is going to have different challenges. So the challenges I had at Constant Contact were very different than when I went to MuleSoft, and now I had a developer-first audience. Now the problem that I had at MuleSoft was we had an open source solution. We moved to the enterprise, and what that meant is all the work that developers had built and contributed, we are now charging for. You can imagine how excited they were. The other challenge is we were a brand new player in the ESB space, which was dominated by players like Tibco, Informatica, this small company called Microsoft, minor players. Went to Tigera. How many people have heard of Kubernetes? All right, we got hands up. How many people here like audience participation? 2 hands up, okay. Well, I worked at a stealth startup nobody had ever heard of, working on Kubernetes, network security, something that was brand new, and a lot of developers weren't even thinking about. And finally, here I'm at RingCentral, and RingCentral sells telecommunications. I know everyone here is super, super excited about phones. Okay, maybe not as much. So we had to again go back and say, how do we bring in developers to get them involved for SMB all the way to enterprise, and how can they use RingCentral's APIs? And I was super excited about the job at RingCentral, and so I shot out a tweet, asked my friends, what do you think about RingCentral? Now, RingCentral is a public company, or 400,000 plus customers, and the very first response I got back was, who? Are they a startup? Now I wanted to hear. The second response I got back was, I love RingCentral. Yes, winner. I think I used them 18 years ago to send a fax. The point here, as we tell our messaging, as we develop our messaging, it's important to understand where you are in the market and how developers perceive you. So as you go with this, a lot of times you look at what everyone else is doing and say, let's copy them. Copying someone else may not work for you. It's not going to necessarily meet your needs. The second challenge we look at is budget. Now, I have been very, very lucky in that all 4 of those programs, I walked in using my incredible marketing skills and sold them on the vision and got a giant budget of $0. And this is not a brag slide. It doesn't matter what your budget is. Because at the end of the day, all good, successful programs have 2 very basic things. Number 1, you have a great product or a great service. If you don't have a great product or a great service, it doesn't really matter what you do. You can make it look as great as you want, but at the end of the day, developers are going to try it, and they're not going to be successful. If you're selling a subscription, you may be able to sell the subscription, they're not going to renew. The second thing you need is a great story. And the previous speaker made a really good point, which is you're not selling a product. You're not selling a service. You're selling a vision. How does your solution help them? How does it change their lives? And if you think about developers are very pragmatic. So how does it pragmatically or really impact their day-to-day? A developer doesn't want to hear, this product is so amazing, it's going to give you 1,000 free days a year. which sometimes, I'm not saying that as marketers we ever exaggerate. I don't think we do that. But they want to hear, this will save you X amount of time by doing this. Give them the facts and be able to prove it. The other thing about a great story tells itself. So again, as we look at building this program, and by the way, on top of the story, this is where I've started all 4 programs. I start with, what's the story we're going to tell? We can figure out everything else once we have the story. And there's 4 stories that come to mind. Now, these are not their mottos. This is not what these companies say. But let me ask you a question. How many people here have a Netflix account? Who can share their password with me? Oh, okay, in the back, thank you. How many people bought Netflix because you saw an ad for it? How many people have taken Uber because you saw an ad for Uber? The incredible thing about developers is that most of the marketing that happens is through social channels. And again, we get this concept that developers are introverted. The reality is they're very, very engaged with each other. They're talking on Stack Overflow. They're talking on forums. They're talking on Slack or Ring Central. They're in the old days at IRC, on Twitter, on Reddit. They're very, very engaged. But as you read each one of these examples, Netflix's story wasn't watch movies when you want. Don't worry about late fees. Airbnb wasn't don't get stuck in a hotel and have the comfort of your own home when you're traveling. Uber wasn't, hey, take a comfortable ride. And MoviePass, by the way, MoviePass is coming back. MoviePass wasn't watch a bunch of movies. And by the way, when we talk about having a great product and a great service, I think all these come to mind. We think of Netflix, you're probably like, yeah, I love Netflix. Airbnb, hey, I love Airbnb. Uber, I love Uber. MoviePass, I'll leave that one alone. What they sold in their story was the value. And this is where we need to be very focused as developer marketers. Because we often think with developers, we talk about the features of the product. Features are nice, but what's the vision? What's the value? In the enterprise space, you don't buy a solution, you buy a partner who's going to lead you through that next step. If you look at Netflix, it was time with family and friends. Airbnb was about freedom. Uber, safety and freedom. You didn't have to go find a cab. You didn't have to wait. And you knew who your driver was going to be. And MoviePass, again, spending time. You could go with your friends to movies. You could engage with them. This brings me to the second point. Your competition is not your competitors. Another mistake we often make is we say, okay, who are our competitors in the field? This is who we have to message against. This is who we have to really go against to get the developer's attention. The reality is your competition is them spending time with their family, them going to their kid's ball game, them taking time to grow their career or getting that extra work done or that side gig. It's really, really important that you have to bring real value to their lives and you're not competing against the company that you know is your competitor. You're competing against the things that are claiming their attention every single day. So creating a great story. To create a great story, there are 4 different components. Knowing your audience. If you think about storytelling, it's really hard to tell a story if you got the wrong audience. As an uncle, I wish I could say I've been a perfect uncle, but when my niece was 3, I decided to tell her a scary story. And you're right there, smart. I don't think that was a real smart. I think that was a very sarcastic smart. I had to spend the next week staying up with her every night explaining why that story was completely false, it's not real, it could never happen, etc. Wrong audience. Know your product. And this is something that I think sometimes becomes difficult for us because when we work with the product team, work with engineering, they like to get really technical really quickly. And so they say, oh, this does this, and you can do an SQL request in 0.5 milliseconds versus having to do this request, and if you're going to do RBAC, you can do it this way. It's like, wait, hold on. But the reality is we need to understand our product. And that means asking some tough questions that we as marketers don't always like asking. Like, what problems does it create? Because when you work with developers, they're going to hone in on every single piece, and they're going to ask you the hard questions. If you say, I can do this, they're going to say, prove it. And the last thing you want to do with developers is say, I can do this when you can't. I can't say the number of times I got myself in trouble, but I'll name one story here. When I was at Constant Contact, I had a potential prospect or potential customer come up. And he walked up to me and said, I have a small business. I like you guys have the APIs. I like you have the integrations. I'm thinking about switching to Constant Contact. Tell me why I should. I said, okay, what's your business do? He goes, we're a small nonprofit. I send 1 email a month to 13 board members. And today I use MailChimp. He goes, now convince me. I said, you should use MailChimp. Now the salesperson next to me didn't really appreciate that answer. And I'm pretty sure I had a lot explaining to do, except the very next day I received an email from this individual. And the email said, I just signed up for Constant Contact. I know it's going to cost me more. I know MailChimp is free, but I appreciate the integrity, and you're a partner I can trust. I would much rather have a developer use our competitor and not have a great experience than use us and have a bad experience and then go choose a competitor. Know your company. Again, you're not selling a product or a service. You're not marketing a product or a service. You're marketing a vision, and that vision needs to align with your greater company. And every company has strengths and weaknesses. Oops. And finally, know your competition. What are your competitors' strengths? What are their disadvantages? Where can you play in the market? Once at MuleSoft, we looked at all these other solutions, and it was very complex to use the ESB. With MuleSoft, you could just drop it in, easy to use connectors, easy to go. And so a developer would ask me, goes, well, why should I use MuleSoft? I was like, you don't have to write code. Now try telling that to a developer, you don't have to write code. And he's like, are you trying to replace my job? No, we're trying to let you do your job faster so you can focus on the fun aspects and not have to maintain an API every time the owner changes it. And the last piece is, what opportunities are your competitors missing? Where's the market for you? Where's this vision for you that no one else is thinking about just yet? Everything you do it with empathy, integrity, and authenticity. This is something I say in every single talk of mine. Empathy, integrity, authenticity. Early on in developer relations and marketing, they did a survey, and they asked, what are the 2 most important pieces to developers? What's the 2 most important components for you to be successful in developer marketing? The number 1 answer, which surprised me, number 1 answer, empathy. They want you to respect their challenges. They want you to understand their challenges. They want you to walk that journey with them. They don't want you to sell them something that they can't use or makes their life harder, and they don't want you to try to give them a bunch of fluff that says how great it is. They want you to understand, here's a problem I have, and here's a solution that actually helps me solve it. Number 2, integrity. Again, like I said, rather have our developers have a bad experience somewhere else than come to us and have a bad experience first. I don't want to have a bad experience with us at all, but I'd rather have them go somewhere else that doesn't meet their needs and find out and then come to us when we do meet their needs. Being honest with them, telling them we can't meet your needs, we can't meet your solutions. And again, that's counter to everything that we do in marketing. If you're a traditional marketer, you're going, no, I need to drive pipe. I need to get leads. I can't be turning people away, but it's really about being honest with them and authentic. Everything you do, be yourself. If you're not a developer by nature, don't pretend to be a developer. People ask me, do you have to be technical to be in developer marketing, developer relations? Absolutely not. Some of the best community managers that I've worked with that talk to our developers every day, they're the face of the company, come from non-technical backgrounds. But they cared about what the developers were working on. They got excited when the developers got excited. They were honest, and they were themselves. If you have to sell a product to developers, you've already lost. And the best example I can give is I was at a developer conference, and the developers were walking to the booths. And this one guy's like, let me tell you about our product. Developer will walk by. Let me tell you about our product. Developer will walk by. Let me tell you about our product. Walk by. And he couldn't understand because he's a salesperson, and this is what he does. And at other conferences, people are like, okay, I guess I'll listen. But developers are like, just walking by. Developers don't want to be sold to. If you think of the movie Taken, they have a particular set of skills, and they know the value they bring. They want solutions that are going to help them. Now, there's this phrase, developers hate marketing, and I'm guilty of saying it. Developers hate marketing. That's not true. Developers love marketing. They love hearing about the shiny new object. They love hearing about the tools that are going to make their jobs easy. What they don't want is the in-your-face, aggressive marketing. They want, we understand your problem, this is how you can solve it, and we get who you are as a person. And that means there's a difference between selling and helping. And for our developer marketing at RingCentral, this was one of the most important principles I put down right at the bat, which was we're not selling RingCentral. We're helping developers achieve their goals. Selling is, let me tell you how great our product is. Selling is, we can do X, Y, Z better than our competitors. Helping is, we understand you have this problem. We think we might be a valid solution because we can do this. Does this meet your needs? Selling means when I can't do it, I kind of go around the corner and try to avoid that conversation. Helping means, you know what? I can't do that, and I'll pick on RingCentral. We have an incredible friend of me here, also presenting Twilio. If you come in and say, hey, I want to sign up, get a number for $1, and send $5 worth of SMS a month, should I use RingCentral? Well, are you doing voice calls? Nope. Fax? No. Team messaging? No. Then no. You should use Twilio. They have a great solution. But if you need those capabilities, then come back to us. Create a great story. Again, you have to know who developers are as people. How many people here have been a developer before? Okay, this is great. About half the room has been developers. I will tell you that the world between developers or engineers and marketing is like two different universes. And I wish I could tell you that when I made that transition, I walked in on day one, I was like, hey, I understand what matters to marketers, I understand your challenges, and I understand how to talk to marketers. I think the reality was that my coworkers wanted to kill me on day one. Completely different than what I wanted. Again, who are they as people? What are they actually focused on? What are their real life challenges? And of course, what are their hopes? What are their dreams? It's really hard to create a vision if you don't know what they're hoping for. It also means understanding that as a developer marketer, you probably have two audiences. You have external audience, which may be your developers, and then you have your internal audience, which is the other people in marketing. And if you're a brand new marketing program for developers, and if you don't have a paid solution, you're a cost center. And so maybe questions about, hey, what do you actually do? What value do you bring to the table? You need to tell the story to them. You need to tell a story to your sales team. When I started RingCentral, we didn't have any paid API offerings. That meant I had to go to our sales team and say, this is why this is important. This is why this helps our customers. I had to sell, I shouldn't say sell, but sell them on, I need to help them find the vision. So again, as you look at it, what it comes down to, no matter who your audience is ROI. If I'm a developer and you say I have this great API, I'm going to try it because I expect it to make my life easier. I'm using your AI API because I want to write the AI myself. I'm using your SMS API because I don't want to have to go build my own communication system. But if it creates more work for me or it's too expensive, then I'm not going to use it. It also means understanding who your external audience is. At RingCentral, we have numerous different audiences we have to cater to. We have the developer, which we're focused on today. We have the non-technical buyer. As much as I wish developers could write that $1 million check, it doesn't happen. When I worked at MuleSoft's solution started at $80,000. Developer wasn't going to buy an $80,000 solution. That'd be a CTO or a CIO who's making that decision. You need to have the best position for them as well. The developers who are going to implement it, and if your developer is the buyer, that's fantastic, then having a direct message to them. If you're a company like RingCentral, we also have ISV partners. We want to build to connect their system and have apps. Understanding each of these audiences is absolutely critical. And again, it's also important to understand that each of these audiences thinks differently and behaves differently. When you look at, and one of my favorite models is the insights discovery model. And it breaks it up to 4 different energies. And the concept here is that every person has all 4 energies, but some energies are more dominant than others. Who wants to guess what the dominant energies for a developer is, or are? Blue? I hear blue. What else? What other color might be a dominant energy for developers? Red. I hear red. Perfect. So blue and red. So what that means is when you're working with developers, and by the way, this is not, obviously everyone has their own personalities. I'm not saying every developer is going to fall in the blue and red category. What I will say is when I worked as an engineer and we did this exercise, in the entire team, I was the only developer that did not have blue and red as my leading colors. I had green and red, which meant basically show me you care and then get out. But developers tend to be very cautious and skeptical of your solution because they're used to being sold to. They want to be precise, and they can be demanding at times and strong-willed. Say, I need this to work, I need it to work now. Marketers, if you come from a traditional marketing background, marketers typically fall into the green-yellow or yellow-green categories, where we have that sunny enthusiasm, we're caring, we want to help people. Those are two very distinct personalities. So you can imagine when I became a marketer, how that blue-red worked in that green-yellow environment. So again, as you're developers, understand how they communicate or how your audience communicates. Also, keep in mind that your goal here is to create a story that can be tailored to multiple audiences. When you create a great story, this isn't a story that you're going to say, okay, it's exactly the same for every audience, but at the end of the day, the overall vision, the overall hope, the overall goal should be similar. So knowing your developers. What do developers like? And when I ask this question, I hear all sorts of answers. Developers like code. Believe it or not, I know some developers that actually hate code. Developers love social media. I had a developer, a good friend of mine, who works at a social media company who hates social media. And then you hear developers like meetups. I have plenty of friends who just avoid meetups at all costs. Developers like Reddit. There's plenty of us that are like, hey, that's not the place for me. Developers like Twitter. Lots of developers now on Twitter. So as you think about developers, keep in mind everything you think you know is probably not 100% accurate. What they focus on in their work, same thing. What technologies are developers using? What are developers' challenges? And again, I'll jump back. What technologies are developers using? And we'll look at the TIBCO index and say, oh, they're using Java, PHP, JavaScript. Well, what if they're a machine learning developer because then they're focused using on typically Python? Or a Kubernetes developer and they're working on typically Go. Again, as we look at developers, saying developer is kind of like saying marketer. I think we're all developer product marketers here, or developer marketers here, hopefully, or aspiring to be. But you have customer marketing, you have solutions marketing, you have digital marketing, you have content marketing. The list goes on. So when you look at your developer audience, understand the way you need to segment that audience for your needs. Because they can be segmented so many different ways. You can look at the programming language, you can look at the type, you can look, are they a citizen developer, or are they an enterprise developer? Understand how to segment for your audience. And I'll be honest, we don't segment by most of these at RingCentral. We do look at what are their needs, what are their goals, and what languages are they using. The other thing that we say is to answer these questions, we have a whole list of items. And typically one of the first tasks that we want to do is create a persona. And personas are important. I get myself in trouble because my coworker gave a talk on personas and how important they are, so I can't say they're not. We look to use analyst reports. We want to run community surveys. One of the most common things we do is say, let's get a community survey out there and know our developers. But here's the crazy thing. The last three things actually tend to be the most effective. Asking your developers. So you run a survey, and it's hit or miss. You might get 12 responses, and that might be reflective of your community. It might not be. But if you're constantly engaging your developers, every time you see a developer on a forum, you reach out and say, hey, I'd just love to have a 5-minute conversation. Or if they're local, love to buy you coffee and chat about your experience. The influencers, who are the developers you've worked with? What are the challenges you've seen? Reviewing existing data, if you have a CRM or existing portal, Orbit is another great solution. And then, again, asking others in the space, running community surveys, asking your coworkers, and developing personas. But let's not develop a persona until we understand who the developer audience is. And your developers are the ones that help you craft this perfect story. Again, this is the foundation of everything you do with your program, is the messaging you create. Without the positioning, without the messaging, you don't really have a strong marketing value proposition for your developers or for your audience. Number 2, know your product. I'm going to give away the secret sauce at RingCentral. This was our exercise we did in 2018. And you can see there's a lot of good things here. What does your product solve? It allows you to use your trusted business number. You don't have to go get a separate number. You can integrate third-party apps. You can sync data. It's the only all-in-one solution for developers. Lots of great things. And then we had to ask ourselves the hard question. What problems does it create? Well, there's an awareness problem. Most customers don't know about our APIs. They don't know about it, they can't use it. Most customers bought a phone system. They didn't have a vision for how to use the APIs. They're not thinking, I want a voice API to automate my communications. Most customers at RingCentral are not developers. Developers are not familiar with RingCentral APIs, which means they have to come in and learn the technology, learn the SDKs, and our onboarding was too difficult. These are not questions we like to answer. And when I say our onboarding was too difficult, I did a competitive analysis, and don't tell my bosses because I'll get in trouble, but one competitor, it took me 15 minutes to build the app. Another competitor took me 20 minutes, and with RingCentral, it took me 40 hours. Wow. That's a problem. And if I go and market that to developers, again, I'm going to be lying to them and lose all credibility and they're going to have bad experience. These are items that you have to fix. Also, what's it do that you're not thinking about? And this is where you can engage your developers, have them tell you how they're using your product. We talked to our customers at RingCentral. They were doing things we never imagined with our APIs. It completely changed the value proposition. It completely changed the vision of how we're going to market them. And where can you go in the future? Because you're not telling developers a story of here's what we can do today. You're saying here's what we do, but here's where we're going. And if you don't have that future component, again, you're not selling a solution or you're not selling a vision. You're not selling a partnership. You're selling a product. And again, this is where we really focused. And if you look at RingCentral's messaging in 2018, it was revolutionize communications. It was bring all this together. It was have a CPaaS solution for all these needs. And what happened was we went from not being seen as a CPaaS to being seen as a CPaaS. We went from not being known by developers to being one of the most award-winning communications platforms for developers. Know your company. How is your company positioned in the market? Again, if I look at RingCentral, when we started, it wasn't great. But we had to understand this is our challenge. At the same time, RingCentral is a leader in cloud communications. They're one of the most well-known cloud communications companies. That was our advantage. How is it positioned with your audience? In other words, what developers think of us? Well, they didn't think very highly of us at all. We had to fix that, and that's where we had to start from the ground up. If you go to a program where they already know you, then you don't have that issue, but you're going to have some other challenge. What are the current downfalls? Why wouldn't you use your solution? And be honest about it, because developers are going to ask you, why wouldn't I want to use this? And what's the 5-year roadmap? Where's your company going? Because again, it's one thing to say this is the product roadmap. It's another thing to say this is our company vision. And again, you're that partner. Last but not least, and I can't share this one because I'll get fired for sure. What are your competitors' strengths? What are their disadvantages? Is there an area you can play that creates a new solution for your developers for a problem that they might not even know that they have, but is a real pain point? How are your competitors currently perceived? And that's really important because one thing some companies do, and I'm adamant that we don't do this, is bash their competitors. Every single one of our competitors does things better than we do at some level. Now, I think we have an overall better solution. Otherwise, I won't be at RingCentral, but every competitor does something well. We have to recognize that. And what opportunities are your competitors missing? Again, a lot of people like to play where the space is. Where is the space going? And that should be critical to your story. Once you have that, now we can get all to the nitty-gritty. So we talk about messaging docs, we talk about battle cards, we talk about developer brand and properties, building out the community. Every single aspect starts from this story. Everything we did at RingCentral started with how are we perceived, how do we address that, how do we create a great story, and how do we tell that story through every single touch point that we have. Every single thing we do resonates, or hopefully resonates if I'm doing my job, the story that we created based on what our developers advised us to tell. And everything we do at RingCentral starts with 3 things: empathy, integrity, and authenticity. With that, I appreciate everyone bearing with me and definitely happy to answer any questions.
Alrighty, I think we have time for one big question.
Well, 1.5.
1.5. Who's got the question? I'll ask a question then.
All right.
I loved the position of empathy in that. It can be hard to put that developer empathy at the center of things. So I'm wondering if you have an example of, especially when you were talking about that importance of the internal helping, and the showing ROI through that storytelling, kind of how people can think about putting empathy at the center when there might be resistance to it.
I think one of the hardest challenges with empathy is when you have a personality that's different from your own. And so if you fall in that green, yellow category, you get somebody who's very demanding, very aggressive, and every time you try to help them is very skeptical that you're actually trying to help them, I think that creates challenges. I think the most basic question for empathy, though, is why are they behaving the way that they are? What's the psychology behind the interaction that you're having? And what it goes back to is if you look at a person who tends to be more skeptical, it's because you don't have that trust. And that's what's lacking. So that's something we have to understand. They don't trust us. Let me ask you a question here. How many people call their phone company with complete level of trust? Or their cable company? Again, developers are used to being sold to. They're used to being told, this is this great solution. They have a right to be skeptic because they've been misled before. If they're demanding, why are they demanding? Is it that they're just a jerk and they deserve that they should have everything now, or they feel entitled they should have everything now? Or is it they have a real problem, a real pain point, and they're under a lot of stress? And when you take that step back, it's much easier to say, okay, my goal here is not to go toe-to-toe with them. My goal here is to help them. And there's this concept, it's called verbal judo. And the idea is, rather than going toe-to-toe with somebody, you look at what's the problem, you try to de-escalate, and you try to offer them solutions. So if someone says, hey, I need this, you can say, I completely understand. I know you're in a rush to get this done. Here's how we can help with this solution. Otherwise, we can do this. And they go, well, I don't want that. I'm like, well, do you want to write all the code yourself? So you're giving them the options and helping kind of frame it. In terms of the ROI aspect, my biggest piece of advice for any program is if you're not tracking revenue today, that's okay. Every program, when they start out, a lot of times you may not be tracking revenue. Find a way to associate revenue long term. And that can be direct revenue, that can be attached revenue, that can be influenced revenue, but find a way to show a dollar value. And then what you'll see, and I think Common Room had a great talk on this earlier, is as you have these interactions, you'll start to see, again, those figures hopefully be influenced. And if they're not, and your other KPIs or OKRs or whatever metric you use are not being influenced, that means let's go back to the drawing board, let's look at what's not working. One of the things that we use at RingCentral is a marketing funnel that we've customized for developers to say, okay, where are they getting stuck in the stage? If they're aware of RingCentral, but they're not looking at our docs, they're not looking at the SDKs, what happened that caused that? If they're looking at the docs SDKs, but they're not moving down the funnel into using us, what's causing that? So looking at those metrics and working with your DevRel team, your product team, your engineering teams to identify those stop gaps and make sure you have the right messaging. Because at the end of the day, developer marketing, we aren't just acquisition. And the last part of that stage is, that we use at RingCentral is advocacy. How do we make sure they love RingCentral and they want to tell the world about it? And that's where, again, we kind of hand them off to product and engineering, but then we come back, we say we really have to make sure that we're having a relationship with them. That's the other last thing I'll add, and then I'll stop talking because I know I'm way over time, is with developer marketing, marketing really focuses on leads, pipe, etc. And there's a component there. Our second role at RingCentral is relationships over leads. Let's foster that relationship. Let's engage them. They may not be our buyer, but maybe 3 years from now, they go talk to somebody who is. Again, it's all about the relationship.
This is what happens when a green yellow asks a question of a green yellow. So thank you so much. That was an outstanding session.
Thank you.